Ladies and gentlemen, would you please find your seats at this time? And if you would be so kind, silence any cell phone or any other electronic device you may have with you today. Thank you.
In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Manny Ginsberg's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. From Psalm 15, Mizmor LeDavid Adonai, mi yagur ba'ohalecha, mi yishkon bahar kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo. Lo ragal al leshono, lo asa l'reyehu ra'ah, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. Nivzeh be'enav nim'as ve'et yirei Adonai yechabed, nishpa lahara v'lo yamir. Kaspo lo natan beneshech v'shochad al naki lo lakach, ose ele lo yimot la'olam. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others, do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere the Lord. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. And from Psalm 103, Kerachem av al banim richam Adonai al yireav, ki hu yadat yitzreinu zachur ki afar anachnu. Enosh kechatzir yamav ketzitza sadeh ken yatzitz, ki ruach avrabo ve'enenu velo yakirenu od mekomo. V'chesed Adonai me'olam v'ad olam al yereyav v'tzidkato livnei vanim. As a father has compassion for his children, God has compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over them, and they are no more, and no one can recognize where they grew. But God's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children, to all the reverent ones, endures, age after age, unchanging. At this time, several members of the family will be sharing words of eulogy, beginning with Manny's 4 daughters, and we'll call on Toby.
Mishpacha. Mishpacha is the Hebrew word for family. Family is my strength and my everything. Taking time every day to appreciate your loved one is something I learned from my dad. To us, family means putting your arms around each other, being there, laughing together, crying, getting advice from each other. Being a family means you are part of something wonderful, and that's what my dad instilled in us. My father would gladly reach out to anyone who needed family love. He welcomed with love all of our husbands' families and treated them as his own. Even my children's friends all called him Zadie. And for that matter, anyone who didn't have a Zadie, he was their Zadie too. You just needed to see our sukkah filled with family, or see our 60-plus Passover Seder to see the meaning of family. Our family will surely never forget the Seder when the caterer forgot to deliver the food, or when Dad accidentally threw the Seder hard-boiled eggs in the trash because they were in a garbage bag and he thought he was being helpful by getting rid of the trash. There was nothing more wonderful than dancing with Dad, going on vacation, or to the beach, or racing through the bay on his boat, or having a quiet moment just hugging, or watching the Three Stooges. Why, you just had to say the word, the Three Stooges, and my father would crack up hysterically. We were all Daddy's girls. He was our patriarch, teacher, huggable, lovable Daddy. His 11 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren were the pride and joy of his life. There is a hole in my heart right now, but I can start putting together our album of all of our memories, because the memories we make with our family is everything.
Thank you, Toby. Marcia?
Thank you for coming. I'm number 2. We go by 1, 2, 3, and 4. My dad had many names. Menashe, that he was born with, Manny, Daddy, Dad, Zadie, and Zadie. He was not only a gentleman, he was a gentle man. Dad was born on September 28, 1929 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, one month before the Great Depression began. His parents, Sarah and Matthew, were immigrants from Ukraine, but his dad went to college to become a pharmacist so he could raise his sister Naomi and him and educate them. In Philadelphia, he helped his father in the drugstore. He also took piano lessons and studied with a maestro who took him to play in concerts all over Pennsylvania. This instilled in him a lifelong love for classical music. But being a concert pianist was not to be in his future. When he was 13, his father moved the family to Washington, D.C., and bought a pharmacy there. Because they were new to town and didn't belong to a synagogue, Dad never had a bar mitzvah. This is until he turned 90 years old and decided to study a Torah portion and became a bar mitzvah, finally, in front of all his family and friends. My grandfather needed help in his pharmacy, so Dad graduated high school at the age of 16, skipping 2 grades. And he went on to study pharmacy at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., after which he went to work with his father at New Hampshire Pharmacy. In high school, his sister Naomi suggested that he meet her best friend, Biddy Williamowski, and the match was made. They were inseparable after that. Married in 1951, they were together for 67 years until Mom's death in 2018. There's a funny story that they told us that when Toby was born, he called everyone and he said, "It's a girl, it's a girl." When I was born, he called everyone and he said, "It's a girl, it's a girl." When Diane was born, he called everyone and he said, "It's another girl." And then when Lisa was born, he called everyone and he said, "Ditto." But he was a great girl dad, despite being outnumbered in the house. He always said he was a minority in the sorority. My dad was devoted to Mom and his girls. He worked hard at his pharmacy. He valued education, and he made sure all of us got a college education and became professionals. He let me fill prescriptions and ring people up, I'm sure which is not allowed today. We all took years of piano lessons, and we loved when he'd sit down and he'd play Chopin or Beethoven for us, his favorite composers. He had season's tickets to the opera and the symphony orchestra at the Kennedy Center, and he took us often to the symphony when we were very small children. Because of him, I developed a love for classical music and opera. If I hummed a tune and said, "What song is this again?" he always knew the name of it and who the composer was. He loved to drive, and he drove until 4 months ago. He taught us all to drive, and every few months he would drive us to Philly to see his aunts and uncles. He would drive us to Delaware to see Mom's best friend. He would drive us to Florida every year to visit their best friends in Miami. And in 1969, he drove Mom and the 4 girls all the way to California, down through the South and back through the North, for 6 weeks. And he was still sane afterwards. He instilled in me a love for travel and learning about new places. Him and Mom never missed a celebration, a bar mitzvah or a wedding, near or far. If it was out of town, they went. He once told me, "If someone thinks enough of you to invite you, you should make every effort to be there." A lesson I follow to this day. He was very good to his friends, bringing their prescriptions home to them if they were sick, treating them to dinner or a concert or an opera, and always treating his family when we went out to dinner. Sick was something my dad rarely was. He prided himself on a healthy diet and exercise, and because of that, we were blessed to have this gentle man in our lives for so long. Mostly, he taught us to be good people. Yasher Koach, Dad, on a life well lived.
Thanks, Marcia. Diane?
Again, I just want to thank everybody for being here, being there in my father's life. He loved you all, and you were a part of him, and therefore a part of us. My father had a great love for many things: music, dancing, travel, learning, reading the news, his boat and the beach, watching his Turkish shows with Leah, to name a few, and especially his family and friends. He made each of us feel special and important. He showed up for the people he cared about in his life.
As I started to think about what I wanted to share today, I recalled last week's Torah portion, Va'era, and the special words that Moshe said. As the narrative goes, he saw a burning bush, heard Hashem calling out to him, and Moshe answered, Hineni, here I am. Some say that means I'm listening and ready to act. We know what follows. Moshe is given the monumental task of returning to Egypt to lead the Jewish people out of slavery. He answered, Hineni. He listened and proceeded to take action. In many ways, my father was a man who said, Hineni. As I read the numerous thoughts that so many of you shared with us, there was a common theme. Friends acknowledged how my father listened to them and made everyone he spoke to feel important. People shared that my father always paid attention and remembered what was going on in their lives. Many cousins who had a strong connection to our father commented on how he was always interested in everyone. My father not only listened, but he acted. If someone needed something, a ride from the airport, medicine delivered to your home, a place to stay, even if he had recently met you, an Israeli traveling on the road who was going to be in town, a ride to the doctor, my father was happy to help out. He showed up no matter how far he needed to drive to support friends and family celebrating a simcha or burying a loved one. Of course, it did help that he loved to drive as much as he loved being there for people. Throughout his long life, there are other ways that our father said Hineni. He listened to the call for funds to help build this shul and acted. He listened to the needs of his grandchildren and generously offered guidance and support along the way. He was present at their sporting events, concerts, life cycle events in school, and we were all so blessed to have him attend every simcha they celebrated. This would not be complete if I didn't also mention that he listened to our mother of blessed memory. He heard her and acted to support her in raising us, providing us with a wonderful life. He heard her and acted to help her create a world for us, rich in learning and celebrating our Judaism. He heard her and acted to help her live a full and active life, even as she began to be less able in her later years. Let me return again to Moshe. Our Torah teaches us he became a great leader of the Jewish people and is considered one of our great patriarchs. The dictionary defines patriarch as a father and ruler of a tribe, as one of the founders of the ancient Hebrew families, or a man of great age and dignity. My father may not have been a founder of the ancient Hebrews, but he certainly became a father of many children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And as everyone here knows, he was a man of great age and dignity. We will deeply miss this patriarch that has been there for us to lead us and guide us in our lives. I hope that I can learn from his life to say, Hineni, here I am. I hope that I can live my life listening to the needs of others and acting in ways that are supportful and helpful. I love you, Daddy, and already miss you so much.
Thank you, Diane and Lisa.
My father once came to me after attending a friend's funeral. Wow, he said, that child sure spoke beautifully about their father. I wonder what my children or grandchildren will say about me someday. This prompted me to ask him if he would like to know these things before he died. In his extraordinary humble manner, he smiled and said, maybe. This prompted me to organize our family, the Hanukkah before my mother died, to write letters of memory, values, and gratitude. Of all the material gifts given over the years, I believe this to have been his favorite gift of all. For years and leading up to my father's 95th birthday, I told him I wanted to sit with him and write his ethical will as a gift from him to the family. While he agreed circumstances prevented us from doing this, I am convinced now that there was no need to complete this goal because his words, his actions, his generosity, and his joy were always felt by all and didn't require pen to paper to shape and mold the people we have become from everything he taught us in the day-to-day way he lived his life. My father was blessed in his marriage to my mother. He was blessed again after she died to find friendship and a meaningful relationship with Leah. They held each other up through shared loss of a spouse, through COVID, through the last 7 years sharing time together. I believe in my heart that this relationship extended the years of his life, and I know my sisters agree. My father was blessed with 4 children. I'm ditto. 11 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. This is a rare gift that most of us will never experience in our lifetime. The gift of watching one's family grow generation after generation and knowing that your presence in their lives will make a lasting imprint for years to come. My father treated his son-in-laws, Maury and David, as sons and embraced his grandchildren's life partner as his own grandchildren. His great-grandchildren brought him so much joy and contributed to the quality and longevity of his life. His love and generosity had no limits. He loved his in-laws, brother and sister-in-laws, Jay and Polly, and all the others that are no longer with us, and his nieces and nephews with an abundance, always treating them and their partners as an extension of his own family. He loved spending time with his friends and deeply loved spending time with all of our friends too. He loved his Sherry Tefillah community and loved spending time with the rabbi, the cantor, congregants, having aliyot, quietly praying, reading Torah and Haftorah, gathering his daughters under his talit for the blessing of the Kohanim, preparing to read Torah and many of the B'nai Mitzvot, and celebrating his own bar mitzvah at the age of 90. The outpouring of deeply moving notes from family members and friends, both here and in Israel, is a testament to the extraordinary man he was and the impact his life had and will continue to have on everyone who crossed his path on his journey through life. My father was a humble man, a quiet man, a generous man who lived his life with great intention. In an effort to stay physically strong, he participated in sports and worked out, the last 20-plus years meeting his trainer Sam at the gym. Those same 20 years were spent keeping his mind alert, studying Hebrew with Sarah. He loved sharing articles he had read with me and David and explaining the roots of verbs that could mean oh so many things. I will never forget the surprise we all had when, with great intention, Dad stood up at my mother's funeral and delivered a message of encouragement that we make certain to tell the people in our lives not only that we love them, but through our actions and words how much we appreciate them. The week after Mom's funeral, several of you called me that you had taken his advice, to tell me that you had taken his advice to heart and how good it felt to share your love and appreciation for your partners. A quiet man, yes, but make no mistake, he made his mark at every opportunity. For me personally, I was a daddy's girl in the true sense of the word, and perhaps we all were. Daddy's girl is a term that affectionately describes a special and close relationship between a daughter and her father, a bond and emotional connection where the daughter looks up to her father throughout her life as a source of love, guidance, and protection. Built on a foundation of trust and affection, fathers play a pivotal role fostering a sense of security through open and honest communication, sharing of thoughts, fears and dreams, interests and activities. The role becomes influential in shaping personal development, values and principles that provide a strong moral compass and that nurture confidence, positive self-image, and identity. I realized after reflecting what was written about this term that the definition of daddy's girls just might apply to me. I will forever cherish the time spent with my father, whether in quiet and deep conversations, supporting each other through the grief of losing my beloved mother, or participating in shared activities of interest. Each moment made a lasting impact on my life. Family trips as a child, and later in life traveling to Israel all provided wonderful memories. I will forever treasure the importance my father and mother placed on spending holidays, birthdays, graduations, and other life cycle events together, both the extraordinary and the ordinary moments. This was, along with having a family beach apartment, the greatest gift to our family, resulting in our closeness and desire to spend time together. My father's superpower was showing up and welcoming in. They taught all of us, through their example, the value of family, friends, and community. Living close to my parents, my children, Noah, Yardane, Maya, and Tal, and later their partners, had the privilege of seeing my father and mother often, sharing weekly Shabbat dinners at our table or theirs, and having grandparents who attended school programs, performances, and activities on a regular basis. The other grandchildren and great-grandchildren, near and far, were also the beneficiaries of this superpower of his. On a more personal note, I loved doing just about everything with my father, attending concerts, theater, and opera, playing racquetball in early years, and playing tennis finally, when I convinced him it would not ruin his racquetball game. Time on the beach in Ocean City, time on the boat with Captain Manny, watching our children drive the boat with Captain Manny, much to our mother's horror. Early morning bike rides with my father from our beach apartment to Bethany to enjoy coffee and, of course, donuts on the boardwalk before our return. Me always trying to keep up with a man that was 30 years my senior. My father was also a part of my professional life here at Sherry Tefillah. He and my mother attended every single event I did here for 22 years, from programs to retreats to Purim spiels. This gave me an abundance of pleasure, but nothing gave me more pleasure than reading the meaningful notes he sent after sharing his pride for what I had brought to the community and letting me know how much he enjoyed every moment. We as a family have all been the beneficiaries of such notes of pride, along with the custom-made birthday cards that were cherished by all, where each of us became his favorite from somewhere for a moment in time. But the greatest love we shared was a love for big band dancing with him. It began in our family room and continued through every bar mitzvah, wedding, shul galas, and even a Purim spiel right here in this very room. He was always Fred Astaire, and in his arms, I was Ginger Rogers. His finger pointing upwards, shaking to the rhythm, a smile on his face, and a twinkle in his eye. I will always choose to see him this way in these moments and not the more recent months that led us here today. The depth and the pain of my loss is only a testament to how much you meant to me over the 64 years spent with you, to David, to my children, Noah, Yardane, Maya, and Tal, and all the family and friends gathered here today. They say that a person dies 3 times in their lives. The first is when their heart stops beating, the second when one is buried at a funeral, and the third when their name is mentioned for the very last time on someone's lips. Daddy, your name will always be on our lips, and thus your memory always kept alive for eternity. I will love you forever. I will feel forever blessed for your presence in my life, and I will carry my memories of you in my mind, my heart, and my soul forever. Your baby, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, all 4 daughters. We're going to ask all the grandchildren to come up onto the bima. 3 of them are going to speak. So if all the grandchildren come up, and Daniel, Ari, and Maya are going to share a few words.
It's a crowd. I was thinking about my Zadie the other day. It was before his 95th birthday party. All of the thoughts about my grandfather for his 95th were still forming, but they started to become more concrete as we were giving toasts to him on that day. So I verbalized some of those thoughts on that day on his birthday. And so I think for some of you who've heard some of that before, and there's going to be a lot of recurring themes, I think, that were shared. Thank you for bearing with me as I repeat a little bit of what's already been said, but I think you already know a lot about Zadie. Zadie, or Manny, or Daddy, or Uncle Manny, to many of you, was kind. He was open-hearted. He was hardworking. He cared deeply for his friends and family. For me, what made Zadie so special was his generosity. And when I say generosity, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about how Zadie was generous with every part of him. He was generous with his time. He was generous with his passion, and he was generous with his love. Zadie knew how important time was, and he did everything in his power to extend his time here, to be with the people that he loved. He was successful in that with 11 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. As long as I can remember, Zadie was keeping himself physically and mentally fit, playing racquetball or working out at the gym, taking classes to keep his body and mind active. When he couldn't get to the gym, he'd bring the trainers to him. And then he brought us to the gym with him so we could gain a love for physical activity and sport. He supported our hockey and any other sport or activity that we played in, and always made time to come to our games. Zadie, I may be telling the story wrong, but my brother can correct me. Zadie once braved a blizzard to drive to Michigan for Sean's national hockey tournament when all the flights had been canceled. Zadie was also generous with his passions. He shared his passions for music, taking his daughters and his grandchildren to concerts and operas. When it was our turn to perform, he came to our plays and our concerts. Zadie knew that time and passion were some of the most important things that we have on this earth, and he was dedicated to getting as much time as possible with his family and to passionately cheer for them and support them. Finally, Zadie was generous with his love. He opened his home, whether it was large or small, for family gatherings, hosting Passover Seders or family from Israel, extending his love outward to everyone who he came in contact with. It is clear by the number of people here today that you all felt and shared in this love. The thing about generosity is that it pays itself back in wealth. Zadie's generosity provided me and all of his grandchildren with something that can never be paid back. It afforded us with the wealth of space, the space to use our time to pursue our passions and our love. Through his generosity, we were all able to go to college and pursue any dream that we wanted. You can see that in the successes of his 11 grandchildren in so many fields, many of us with advanced degrees. We have doctors, teachers, a journalist, an engineer, so many other career professionals, no lawyers. Might be good to have one of those around sometimes, but anyways. Anything we were passionate about, we were given the space to explore and to cultivate. So I'll briefly go back now to where I started in this toast with this toast for my grandfather's 95th birthday. As far back as I can remember, when as kids we were developing our life goals, and some kids were striving to become professional athletes or famous artists, rich or famous in some way, I remember that those were never my goals. My goal was then, and it always has been, to grow up and be like my Zadie. I didn't need all the riches and fame in the world. I wanted to be successful enough to be a generous man who shared his time, passion, and love so freely and could always help and take care of those people who he loved and who loved him. And Zadie created the space for me to become that. My next goal is to continue to be like my Zadie for the rest of my life and to pass it on, that same drive and values, to my children, my grandchildren, and great-grandchildren as he did to me and mine. I'm so blessed that I was able to tell him that in person on his 95th birthday just a few months ago. I love you, Zadie, and I'll keep you in my heart forever.
It's been almost exactly 7 years to the day since we were all here together remembering the life of our Bubby. And I think it's only appropriate that I start this by mentioning Bubby, because all things that belong to Bubby and Zadie always belong to Bubby first. There was Bubby and Zadie's beach house, or we were going to Bubby and Zadie's for Seder, or we were given Hanukkah gelt from Bubby and Zadie. You get the point. I've thought a lot about this day and what this would look and feel like. It feels surreal to be saying goodbye to someone who feels more permanent than the earth we walk on and more vital than the air we breathe. We are here today to mourn, yes, but more importantly, to celebrate 95 years of a life lived so selflessly. When I thought about this day, there was one thing that excited me, and that was Bubby and Zadie reuniting. A reunion tour of what some are calling the greatest duo of the last century. Every time I thought about this long-awaited reunion, I smiled and wondered what the first thing they would say to each other would be. It became obvious that Bubby would have the world's longest laundry list of things for Zadie to do, considering she's been tallying them up for almost a decade. In honor of this reunion and this long-awaited list, I too compiled a list of 7 important lessons that I've learned from my Zadie that I would like to share with you. Lesson 1. Always try new things at least once. 5 years ago, I had the privilege of celebrating Zadie's 90th birthday by going on a road trip with him to Asheville. We spent many hours in a car together, toured the Biltmore estate, saw some live music, and Zadie even drank a craft beer. When Zadie asked where we were staying, I told him he was going to have his first stay in an Airbnb. He was skeptical, but he was interested in the hype. After 3 nights at what was described as a rad garden apartment 10 minutes walking to downtown, Zadie looked at me and said, "Ari, why am I paying the same amount for a place where nobody cooks me breakfast or makes my bed?" His simple words shattered a billion-dollar business for me. Since that moment, I can count on one hand how many times I've booked an Airbnb. Number 2, the journey is often more important than the destination. Over the last 95 years, Zadie drove thousands of miles in every direction in the United States, and he remembered every minute of it. Regardless of where he was going and who he was driving, as long as his classical music was turned all the way up, he was a happy man. Each day, I strive to be as happy as my Zadie was behind the wheel of his car. Number 3, you are never too old to learn a new skill. Zadie called me right before his 95th birthday party and asked me, "What's all the fuss about this ChatGPT?" After about 20 minutes, Zadie was instructing an AI bot to write the perfect 95th birthday speech that showed how much he loved his family, but also included a little bit of humor. Whether it was one of the first calculator watches, the original Palm Pilot, his loyalty to Siri, or his Bluetooth hearing aids, Zadie saw new technology not as a hurdle, but as an opportunity to learn and grow. Lesson 4. Devote yourself to the people you love and tell them how you feel each and every day. On our road trip, I asked Zadie, "What is your greatest accomplishment of the last 90 years?" Without hesitation, he said, "Helping Biddy raise 4 amazing daughters. Aside from that, I had a pretty uneventful life." Zadie was lucky to find Bubby early on and devote his life to his family's success and joy. Even after Bubby passed, every time Zadie passed her photo, he placed a gentle kiss on the frame. Also, raising 4 amazing daughters, loving 11 devoted grandchildren, and meeting his 12 precious great-grandchildren, some might say that's not necessarily uneventful. Number 5, be generous while you can. Zadie was one of the only people I know who truly loved giving away his gelt, and all he ever wanted to know was whether you deposited the check. Bubby and Zadie wanted to take pleasure in their loved ones enjoying these blessings so they could witness their family grow and prosper. This quality is something I hope to pass on to my children and grandchildren, and if I'm as lucky as Zadie, even great-grandchildren. Number 6, your health and wellness are not optional. A few years ago, a video of Zadie boxing at the ripe age of 90 went viral. Well, at least within our family group chats in the Leisure World Bulletin. You don't become a heavyweight champion without putting in the work. Right up until the last months of his life, Zadie exercised multiple times a week. He even insisted we put him in full workout gear 3 weeks ago to make sure he was ready for his trainer's visit. We should all be so lucky to still be going to the gym and boxing when we turn 95 years old. Number 7, always put others before yourself. My last visit with Zadie was his first with my son, his last great-grandson. We were so lucky to have had special time together, a memory our family will always cherish. To no surprise, the only thing that really stressed Zadie out was ensuring that all of his home nurses were being taken care of with holiday gifts. It is uncommon to come across a person so interested in the well-being of someone they had known for less than a week. His selflessness will inspire us for generations. Just by knowing Zadie, we are all better people. Over the next days, weeks, and months, as we sit and laugh and cry, I ask you to share your memories of Zadie and the lessons you learned from him with the people around you. Use his memories as a connection to the past and a guide to a better future. Thank you all so much for being here and celebrating the life of our Zadie.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. What better way to start than a big oh boy? When my bubby passed away, oh boy became my Zadie's mantra. It helped him grieve, it helped him process, it helped him convey his pain to his family, whether that be emotional or physical. And I think it helped him hold on to a piece of my bubby as he continued to live on in her memory with us for almost a decade longer. Keeping our family together and ensuring that his legacy, also known as a ginormous, beautiful family, could have a leader for just a little bit longer. When Zadie said, oh boy, in the hospital for the last few times this month, I felt like he was calling Bubby, letting him know that he was on his way soon. My siblings and I struck gold growing up, living only 5 minutes down the road, down Georgia Avenue, from the most amazing grandparents known to man. We are fortunate to have them around our Shabbat dinner almost every week, attend every graduation, grandparents' day at school, birthday celebrations, caps games, sitting together in shul right about there, and many private one-on-one breakfast, lunch, and dinner dates to our local spots. While this loss is felt throughout every bone in our body, I know we are all beyond grateful for the amount of time we got to spend with our Zadie. My Zadzela was an incredible person, giving, humble, and truly and admirably brilliant. At 95 years young, he was still driving. We're not sure why, but he was still driving, working out with a personal trainer, taking Hebrew classes, and never missing a moment to teach any of his children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren a new Hebrew word. He loved to show us what he was learning in Hebrew class, what the root of a word was, and how it connected to the beautiful Hebrew language. Zadie valued family, he valued hard work, Jewish education, and tzedakah, giving back to the community. This week, a few of the cousins started listening to old voice recordings from him, hoping to hear his voice again to comfort us as we process this incredible loss in the family. On my phone, I found birthday messages, Shabbat Shalom messages, and best of all, I am so proud of you messages. My Zadie was so incredibly proud of all of us. My favorite recording was from August 28th, 2020. Shabbat Shalom, Maya. I've heard about all the good work you're doing raising money for Chabad. Maybe you'll become a fundraiser in the future. Bye, Shabbat Shalom. This recording was sent to me while I was president of Chabad at Delaware, raising money for a capital campaign to build a new building on campus for Jewish students after our building was burnt down earlier that month. I was studying psychology and family services, dreaming of being a guidance counselor or maybe becoming the next dean of students at the Jewish Day School. When I played this recording the other day, I burst out in tears and uncontrollable giggles because clearly my Zadie knew me better than I knew myself. 5 years later, I have found my path in the fundraising world, helping Jewish communities find joy and connection, especially during these trying times. Living out the values of family, hard work, Jewish education, and tzedakah that Zadie cherished so deeply. Our Zadie knows all of us better than we know ourselves. He has built a family of love, of passion, shared values, and strong Jewish identities. He knew that we were going to be okay, and I promise you, Zaid Zalam, we will be okay. And we will continue to make you and Bubby very proud. May we continue to live our lives, but moving forward, knowing they are up there watching over us today, tomorrow, and always. I love you, Zaids. Give Bubby a kiss from all of us.
What beautiful words. Nothing can be a better testament to a life well lived. We extend our condolences to Manny's children, Toby and Maury, Marcia, Diane, Lisa, and David. To his grandchildren, I'll have more than 11 names because they have significant others, Shira and Scott, Jay and Sarah, Sean and Diana, Joshua and Ashley, Ari and Lauren, Eliza and Uri, Noah, Yardane, and Aaron, Maya and Bosco, and Tal, and to his 12 great-grandchildren, and to his extended family. Every Shabbat morning before returning the Torah to the Ark, we say a prayer on behalf of those who serve the community. We say, may God, who blessed our ancestors, bless this entire congregation, together with all other holy congregations. May God bless the people, them, their children, their families, and all that is theirs, along with those who unite to establish synagogues for prayer, those who give funds for heat and light, wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, and charity to the poor. This prayer was written for someone exactly like Manny Ginsberg, who at the ripe old age of 21, just when he and Biddy were married, became a charter member of this synagogue. 74 years ago, a group of Jews gathered in Northeast Washington in Riggs Park, an area which became known as Little Tel Aviv, and established our congregation. From Riggs Road to Lockwood Drive in White Oak, to right here in Olney, Manny and Biddy, may she rest in peace, not only maintain their membership in Sharei Tefillah, but maintain an active role in the community. They raised their 4 daughters here. They joined with their extended family and took over a whole section of the sanctuary on Lockwood Drive on the holidays. Even the past few years, Manny and his family, as Maya pointed out, took up a whole row of seats in this sanctuary. This was his shul, which he attended, generously supported, and in which he maintained his Jewish identity. Manny read Torah for his grandchildren's B'nai Mitzvah here, and as we heard, at the age of 90, he decided to celebrate his own bar mitzvah. He didn't have the opportunity to have a bar mitzvah as usual at 13 because his family, as Marcia shared, had just moved to D.C. that year. So at 90, he figured he had learned enough Hebrew and had become part of a community enough, so the family threw a nice Kiddush luncheon for him here after he chanted the Haftarah for the very first time. Of the many stories I could share about Manny, this one comes to mind, highlighting how he supported the shul behind the scenes. While our building was being built, we had to rent facilities for services for 5 years. One time we were in the auditorium of Clubhouse 2 in Leisure World for a bar mitzvah service on a Shabbat morning. Since I walked to synagogue on Shabbat, I needed a place to stay, and Manny and Biddy graciously hosted me for Shabbat because their building was just the next building over from the clubhouse. Before the service started that morning, just the little things, before the service started that morning, I noticed that we didn't have wine or grape juice for Kiddush for the service. So I ran back to their condo, and they came to the rescue with a bottle of Manischewitz. Manny was a gracious and humble man. He practiced Hebrew with me almost every time we met, since he participated in a conversational Hebrew class at the JCC every week for years. He never liked attention, and we had to push him to take an aliyah. He married a rabbi's daughter and became a part of a large and active family, and he went along for the ride and became the proud patriarch of that family. Nothing made him happier than being with the family and doing for the family. And so it was a blessing to see that when he passed away on Tuesday afternoon, he was lovingly surrounded by his daughters. The prayer for the community concludes, may God reward them and forgive their sins. May God bless them by making all their worthy endeavors prosper. Amen. Manny leaves behind a rich legacy, a legacy of values, family, and Jewish community. His family is blessed because of Manny, and our synagogue is blessed by him too. We pray that his memory will always be a source of blessing and comfort. Tehi nishmatot tzura b'tzor chaim. May Manny's soul be bound in the bond of eternal life. Amen. Psalm 23. Mizmor LaDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bina odesha yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magalei tzedek lama'an shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi, shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sararai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. If we know it by heart in English, let's say it out loud together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Before we conclude the service, just a couple of announcements. From here, we will proceed to Mount Lebanon Cemetery in Adelphi, Maryland, for the burial service. Because of the timing, there will be no Shiva this afternoon because Shabbat begins. But Shiva will begin at Lisa's home, Lisa and David's home, on Music Grove Court Saturday night. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday, Shiva will be at Lisa and David's. Tuesday will be at Toby and Maury's in Virginia. Each night, Shiva will be at, Minyan will be at 7 p.m., 7:30 p.m. 7:30 p.m. each night, Saturday, wherever it is, here or in Virginia, Minyan will be at 7:30. We rise now for El Male, the memorial prayer. El Male Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Ametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Etoharim K'Zohar Harakia Masirim, Et Nishmat Menashe Ben Moshe V'Sara Shehalach Lo Olamo, Began Eden te menuchato, Anabal harachamim, Hastirehu beseter kanafecha la'olamim, Utzra b'tzrachayim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato. V'yanuach b'shalom amishkavo, v'nomar amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Menashe ben Moshe V'Sara, to the soul of Manny Ginsberg, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will now be proceeding to Mount Lebanon Cemetery in Delaware, Maryland. Those of you who are able to join us, after we bring Mr. Ginsberg out, please return to your cars as quickly as possible. Put on your bright headlights and four-way flashers so you'll be better recognized as part of our funeral procession. We will also give you an orange tag again so you will be better recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are parked out on the roadway, if you would be so kind to allow the lead car, the hearse, and the limousine to proceed out in front of the procession, it would be very much appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, would the pallbearers please come forward?
Please stay in your places until we go out before you. Yoshe Beseter Al Yom Tzal Shaddai